The warrior's path is not an easy path, but it is worthy. Through power, love, and wisdom, the warrior seeks meaning and truth. Let's enter the path. In my first video, I shared with you a personal story of how anger and resentment over wrongs, neglects, and slights chipped away at my ability to be happy. It burned me from the inside out. It was the cause of depression, and its festering acidity ate away at relationships, damaging or even destroying them. It was turning me into a bitter woman. Once I realized this, really truly understood how this was the basis for so much unhappiness in my life, I began my search for how to forgive and release the anger I was holding on to. The tricky part is there is no magic pill. In our society of instant fixes, this may seem to be quite disappointing. You can't wave a magic wand and, ta-da, find forgiveness. When I first decided that I needed to forgive, I was completely clueless on how to do this. I asked Great Spirit to show me. Throughout the day, I would say, please, please, show me how to forgive. My last thought at night would be the same humble and sincere prayer. And in my contemplation of various, sometimes seemingly disparate lines of study, there was a slow dawning of a cohesive, workable strategy that began to unfold itself to me. I'd like to lay this out for you, for your consideration. To get an understanding of how forgiveness can be accessed, I first have to explain where the emotional pain is stored, and for this, we need science. We've all experienced emotions in our body. Nervousness can be felt as butterflies in the stomach. Sadness is described as your heart aching, and indeed that does seem to be where we feel it. Pain in your neck is the literal description of irritation. And science acknowledges these associations. But what's interesting is that from a recent discovery, we found that the brain doesn't register the emotion and send signals out to the body to create the sensation. Instead, just like a burn or a stubbed toe, the body registers the emotion first and then informs the brain of what it is experiencing. Emotions not only register in the body, they can get stuck there as well. Let's untangle this in a stepwise progression. We know that an electrical wire that is running current produces a magnetic field. This is easily demonstrated with iron filings that are spread out on a piece of paper. Similarly, the human body's nervous system is an arrangement of biological wires that send and receive messages to and from the brain via its own electrical current. These wires, or nerves, create magnetic fields in and around the body. Magnetic fields have been identified around the brain, the heart, the stomach, the muscles, and the entire body. Magnetism is an attractive force. In everyday life, we might use magnets to hold things onto metal surfaces. In medicine, we use them to image internal organs and treat arthritis. There are applications in computers, mining, manufacturing, and weaponry. If we look at subtle energy, magnetism has its corollary there as well. Like the electrical wiring in our body that we've identified as our nervous system, the subtle energy channels flow their energy as well. We talked about this in my first video, but to recap, in traditional Chinese medicine, the channels are called meridians, and the energy that flows in them is called qi. In the yogic system, these channels are called nadis, and the subtle life force energy is prana. And so I theorize that as this energy flows, it too creates the subtle energy version of magnetism. I haven't studied traditional Chinese medicine very much, so I would prefer to focus on the yogic system instead. I would just mention that acupuncture and acupressure access particular spots in the body where qi can get stuck, much like a stream that gets blocked by fallen trees and the water backs up. The electrical equivalent would be a resistor that blocks current from flowing. Now, the flow of prana, the life force energy, in the yogic system has three main channels. The Ida and Pingala flow and crisscross beside and through the central channel called the Sushumna. The Sushumna Nadi overlays to a large degree the spinal column. The crossing points of these nadi produce wheels or vortexes of energy, which are called chakras. The chakras are bridges between our spirit, our mind, and our body. If one were to put it into modern psychological terms, we would say that the chakras help us process each psychosocial aspect of our lives. We will get into that in more detail in a minute. But my theory of the subtle energy system is that it behaves just like the physics of electromagnetism. That is, that the prana flowing is like the electricity in our nerves, and the chakras are like the magnetic fields created by that flow of electricity. And so I believe chakras behave like magnets, attracting our physical world experiences into them to process and help us learn and grow. Let me give you an example. Let's say you live with someone, a roommate, a lover, a spouse, or some family member, and they have done something to upset you. We can really choose anything, but let's say they left a bunch of dirty dishes in the sink. You come home from work to find this mess. How do you process this? The experience is drawn in through your first energy processing center, called the root or base chakra. The energy here deals with feeling grounded, balanced, safe, and secure. It is the energy of survival. So you might take in the dirty dishes and feel ungrounded or unbalanced. The harmony of your living space is not clean and tidy. That might even make you feel a little unsafe. As the experience naturally draws upward into your second, or sacral chakra, this has to do with feelings of self-acceptance and the expression of yourself as the person you perceive you to be. In Sanskrit, it is named Svadhisthana, which translates as one's own abode, meaning where the self resides, and therefore, this is the energy of selfhood. Your space is an extension of that personal expression. A subconscious tweak of fear might make you feel uncomfortable. This isn't my space. I'm a clean and neat person. Your internal dialogue might go. This experience challenges that notion. Some blockage of the energy might have already occurred, but the energy of the experience continues to spiral upward into the third or solar plexus chakra. Here resides our social engagements, our personal relationships to our human groups. Here we determine our control and power over the situation. We could call the energy of this center personal power. Imbalance here can lead to an interpretation of lost power and wobbly self-esteem. This is a broken agreement. How dare this person? You might feel an instantaneous desire to punish them, to crush them like a bug for this violation. Or, turning the anger inward, this attack on your self-esteem can lead to self-pity or even depression. The experience spirals upward once more into your fourth or heart chakra. This holds the energy of love, compassion, generosity, and forgiveness. The shadow side, though, can express as resentment, anger, and an inability to forgive, causing a portion of the experience to get stuck here. The experience is drawn higher still into your fifth or throat chakra. This is the energy of communication, both verbal and nonverbal. It is the place of truth and honor. In a broader sense, it is finding the wisdom and understanding in the experience and how we communicate it to ourselves and to others. If any unblocked energy is still left, the experience spirals upward into your sixth chakra, your third eye, where the higher wisdom of the experience can be found. We could call this spiritual inspiration. Drawing the experience into this energy center allows one to see the bigger picture. Is there a recurring theme? Are we to learn a broader lesson here beyond the upset over dirty dishes? The final chakra, found at the crown of your head, is contact with God, or the universal consciousness, the oneness from which we all came. There really is no exploration here in the processing of the experience. I mention it only for completeness. Again, each of these energy centers interprets the situation and either allows a full or partial flowing up into the next center. It happens naturally, and in so doing, the reactions to the experience can get stuck in the magnetic field of any or all of them. I find that most experiences have stickiness in each center, to a greater or lesser degree, and that is why I suggest, when examining or contemplating the experience, that you place the experience into each energy center. So how it is done can be your own system of accessing the chakras. How I do it is sequentially, working from the first one, the base or root chakra, up to the second, then the third, and so on. At each chakra, I perform the following steps. Step 1. Bring focus and resonance into the energy center. I do this first with music. In a quiet meditative state, I listen to a soundtrack that for around 10 minutes provides tones that resonate with a particular chakra. In this musical selection that I use, both crystal bowls are rung and singers tone certain musical notes. For instance, the musical note of E resonates with the third energy center, the solar plexus chakra. So, while the track plays, I would visualize this energy center as a rotating colored sphere, such as yellow in the lower rib cage area, where the solar plexus chakra resides. I focus on it and envision bringing more energy into it. For instance, as I breathe in, I imagine my breath causing the yellow sphere to grow larger and brighter. And as I exhale, I imagine the sphere condensing down to a smaller, more intensely yellow color and spinning more rapidly. I continue with this breathing visualization for several minutes. Often, I get sensations in that spot, in my abdomen, kind of like a tingly, enlivening sensation. Next, I call to mind the mental and emotional aspects of that energy center. So, for the solar plexus, I think about the expression of personal power and self-esteem and how I experience that out in the world. Step 2. Experience the experience in the energy center. At this point, I recall the experience and that portion of it that relates to the mental and emotional characteristics of the energy center that I am working with. In the example of the dirty dishes, at the time of the experience, it is drawn up into each energy center in succession, as I described earlier. Now, I recall the feelings I encountered when it hit my solar plexus chakra. The sense of lost personal power or control regarding the situation and resulting in anger or depression. Here, I must apply rigorous honesty. If it made me angry, I acknowledge and feel the anger. There might be resistance to really truly owning up to the rip-roaring anger that I instantly squelched. Raised as a fundamental Christian, I wasn't supposed to get angry. It wasn't Christian-like. So instead, I did the other side of anger. I turned it inward and got sad and depressed. I cannot emphasize how important it is to dig in deep on this step and own the anger or whatever emotion I am feeling in the experience. No judgment, just see it for exactly what it is. I've even spoken out loud as though the person is right in front of me. I might say, Christopher Walken. Just because you are a big Hollywood star doesn't mean you can leave dirty dishes in the sink. I had a long, hard day, and it was very upsetting to see those dirty dishes when I walked into the kitchen to make my martini, or whatever would be the words I'd use. Once I've done the honest reckoning of the feelings here, I can move on to step 3. Transform the energy of the experience in the energy center. Here, I create a representative image of the experience. The image might be the dirty dishes themselves, or a cockroach, or a Snow White. It really doesn't matter as long as I can relate to it and see it as an icon of the experience, so I have something to anchor while working in this energy center. So I hold that image in my mind, and I begin to flood it with the color of that particular energy center. In our example, I'm working at this point with the solar plexus, so I flood the image with yellow. I intend with this yellow to stream into the image the full concept of the balanced working of this energy center. So I might see the dishes clean and put away. I might see my roommate performing a reciprocal task to thank me for cleaning up after him or her. I might see a written agreement about household cleanliness with both of our signatures at the bottom. As I do this, a fascinating thing happens. The stickiness begins to unstick and melt away. The anger or depression transforms into something more like resolve or purposeful intention. I no longer feel powerless. I might even have an insight here, or just experience a sense of peace. Step 4. Bless the experience in the energy center. Here, I adopt an attitude of gratitude for the healing I just performed through my intentional practice. Saying thank you and blessing this newly acquired gift that I've given myself, namely the unsticking the energy and finding the balanced perspective in this particular center, completes the working in this chakra, and so I would move on to the next one. In this way, for each of the 6 chakras, from base to third eye, is worked upon to transform the experience from one of negative to positive. At the end of this practice, I would now be ready to tackle the situation outside of my interior space, in the so-called real world, with energy centers that are open and balanced, freely flowing spiritual, mental, and emotional energy. I suggest that this pathway, which was adapted from the teachings within the Law of One, can be used for healing from painful or upsetting experience, as well as the broader endeavor of soul evolution. As we draw to a conclusion, you might be wondering why I chose the title for this video. As a shamanic practitioner, I have many guides and power animals which are used in soul healing. In particular, Spider Monkey showed up for me at the point where negative energy needs to be refashioned, or we can say transmuted. Is it a real spider monkey? No, it is an archetypal energy pattern which arises to do transmutational work. It showed up as Spider Monkey so that I might recognize it and work with the transformational energy more easily. At the time he showed up, I had no idea that he had been working in my life for so many years. I hope that this has opened up an idea for you of how to transform the energy from what appears to be a negative experience into the positive energy of spiritual expansion and emotional happiness. May you find your electromagnetic spider monkey as well.